Hello, and we are live. And okay, let's take that off. Why is there no camera? This is very, very bizarre. Um, okay, weird. Hello, Angie.
Hi Neil, how are you?
I'm very good, except you can't see me, which is very weird, and I've got no idea why my camera isn't working. This is this is
I'll
this
just
is
paint a
very, very
visual
bizarre.
picture.
I'm sorry.
I said I'll paint a visual picture.
Okay, can you see me?
I can't see you, no.
Okay, that's very bizarre. Let me try a couple of buttons here.
Hello.
I have no idea. I have no idea what happened there. There we go. This is me. Maybe it was better when the screen was blanked out. Angie McGrandles, welcome to the Midday Show. Hello.
Hello, I'm good, thank you, Neil. How are you?
I'm fine. Let's just do a quick housekeeping check. You can see me okay, can you?
See you well.
Great. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be our guest today. And today's we'd like to have a bit of a focus on mental health and well-being on a Wednesday. We want to talk about because you're all about workplace well-being, aren't you? So tell us, just give us a bit of your backstory in a nutshell. How you got to the point of being a workplace well-being practitioner.
So I worked in a corporate environment for a number of years. I worked in comms, went in at entry level, worked my way up to board director level. And when I was working in comms, and anyone who works in that sector will know it's great fun, fast-paced, pressured environment. And when I was working in comms, my husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And to say for the first time ever, I really experienced stress, pressure, things like anxiety, which I'd never ever had before. I never really had any mental health challenges. And for the first time, I really felt pressured and felt stressed. And it just made me take a little bit of a step back. And it made me realize that in order to look after him and to look after our daughter, who was only one at the time, then I had to really look after myself. And if I took care of my own mental health, then I could look after them. So I really made some changes, in my diet, exercise, thinking about what was supporting me mentally. But one thing I noticed, and obviously this was pre-COVID, but one thing I noticed was there was no real support in the workplace. And while my boss was amazing and really understanding and empathetic, there was nothing practical there, nothing tangible that I could reach out and use. I could have probably accessed a counsellor if I wanted, but really a counsellor wasn't what I needed. I needed some practical tools, some really easy to deploy strategies that I could use to help myself feel less stressed, calmer in pressured situations, so I made good decisions. And it made me think there's a gap in the market there, and I retrained.
Right. That's really. I mean, because I've worked in those fast-paced environments, and when the going's good, I found it great fun. It's just when something happens and we get a mental health challenge or something like that, then we suddenly realise. I don't want to say what we've been doing to ourselves, because it was quite, as I say, I enjoyed it. I love the fast-paced environment. I worked in radio and media, and will still do, but then when I have my own mental health challenges, it's suddenly, where is the self-care and all that sort of stuff. So it does make you step back. And we say it an awful lot on the show as well, Angie. You can't give from an empty cup. And I think suddenly we realise, I haven't really been taking care of myself. It's all been outwardly focused, work, work, work. So first of all, what changes did you make for your own well-being as you filled your own cup, as it were?
Well, I started looking at just some basics, because I think sometimes when it comes to mental health and mental well-being, we've got so many people saying, you need to try this, you need to try that, and I do this and I do that, that it becomes really overwhelming. And quite often we just have to strip it back and go to the basics. And I think the basics are sleep, hydration, exercise, diet. What I read a book recently called The Shed Method by a lady called Sarah Milne, and that is essentially your shed. And that's not the wooden shack at the bottom of your garden where you keep your lawnmower. It's sleep, hydration, exercise, and diet. And they are the fundamentals of good well-being. And that's really where I started, just making sure I was, fueling myself with the right kind of food. Because I think when you get under pressure, when you get stressed, we tend to do everything that we shouldn't do. So we don't take breaks. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, I've got loads on. So you work even harder. You sometimes work through your lunch break. You eat fast, processed, on the go food, because you're like, I haven't got time to meal prep and I haven't got time to scratch cook. So I'm just going to grab food on the go. So you're not necessarily fueling yourself with the right stuff. You hit coffee, caffeine, because you're like, oh, I need that boost of energy. So you sometimes neglect your water intake.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? The very time that we think we need to kick back and do these things for ourselves, we do more of the opposite. I do know that when we're under stress, the front part of our brain, I'm sure you know more about this than I do, shuts down, doesn't it? And we operate more from that amygdala, the emotional center. And what I found is, under stress, I don't make good decisions at all. I've made my worst decisions under stress.
And that is, like you said, there's a part of your brain called your prefrontal cortex, your PFC. And the minute we get stressed, our body's flooded with cortisol, which is like the Darth Vader of hormones. You don't want that. And your PFC goes offline. And your PFC is responsible for decision making, planning. It's what, gives us an objective perspective on things. So when that shuts off and goes offline, that's why when we're under stress and when we're pressured, we make poor decisions, because we're not operating from the right part of our brain. We're operating from that stressed fight or flight perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had personal experience of that. And I look back and I think, literally, what was I thinking? And the answer is probably not very much. And certainly not logically, and certainly not rationally, and certainly not planning, and certainly not making sensible decisions. So you kick right back, and you got your shed in place, all right, and then you started to feel better and more balanced, I take it, and that helped you, which is a great starting point, because it all begins with us, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, it does. And I think as well, one of the things that I guess the ethos that we operate from in my business is simple, small, stretch. So I think when it comes to making any kind of change to improve your overall well-being or your mental health, it's about keeping it simple and keeping it small, because things that are simple and small are easy to adopt, they're easy to attain. Whereas when we start to think, oh, I need to be doing this and I need to be doing that, then it becomes even more overwhelming. Then we get a bit disappointed with ourselves and we're hard on ourselves then. And we're like, that didn't fly, that didn't work for us. And that's because we go here rather than starting here. And if you think about it, right, if you wanted to run a marathon, if you're like, right, okay, Ange, I want to run a marathon, you wouldn't just pull on your trainers tonight and run full pelt a marathon. You would start small. You'd start with maybe 2-kilometer runs, then you'd stretch to a 5K.
I'm reminded of the wonderful Michael Mosley, where he says just one thing.
Yeah, that's a great principle. And that's what you do. You start simple, you start small, then you stretch. And once you've mastered one habit, because I guess when it comes to making changes, especially creating new habits, it's hard for habits to stick. It's easy for bad habits to stick, but it's harder for positive habits because there's more friction there, when it comes to making that change. So it's a little bit harder for us. And I think when it comes to making changes, you've got to rely on habits over motivation, because motivation wanes, it comes, it goes. There'll be days you'll get up and you're like, don't feel like doing that today. I haven't got the energy, the mental energy, the capacity, I haven't got the motivation. But once you create a habit, you just do it automatically. Like you get up and brush your teeth and don't think about it. And that's because you trained your brain to think like that and to operate on the fact that brushing your teeth is something you've just got to do, and you do it every morning, every evening for 2 minutes. You don't need like when you're a kid, your mum has to remind you to do that until it becomes an automatic habit. And that's like with any kind of change. If you keep it really simple and small, it then becomes an automatic habit, and it's easier to stick.
And they build on each other, don't they? And they build on each other, because I'm terribly guilty of that. I think, right, that's it, major overhaul, and then of course failed dismally. And exactly like you say, I'm no blooming good at this. But if you just do, it's like the little wins, isn't it? The easy doable things. I think we really overcomplicate this, don't we? Just one little thing, sleep.
And I think, I'll be honest, Neil, I think some of that comes like pressure from outside. Like we see what other people are doing, and we get snapshots on social media of what somebody's doing. They're scratch cooking every night and making these amazing healthy meals and going to the gym, and they're doing yoga and sound baths and this, that, and the other. And people only ever show you kind of their highlights. And I think you've got to stay in your own lane when it comes to your mental health, because there's no one size fits all. What looks good for me won't necessarily look good for you. And it's about asking yourself, when do I feel my best? What does good look like for me? And don't be influenced by others, because we're all different.
Yeah, I love that advice. Stay in your own lane. Stay in your own lane. So if someone comes to you and they say, I'm really, really stressed, and they give you this laundry list of problems, where would you start with them? What would your approach be? I mean, do you just do corporate, or do you do one-on-one personal stuff as well?
Yeah, I do. So I work with corporate brands. I do one-on-one. I do brand work. I work at retreats. I do lots of different stuff. But my heartland is corporate, but I do work on one-on-one with people as well. And I guess kind of the starting point is just understanding how far down the line are you? Because, there's pressure, and then pressure can tick into stress, but pressure and stress are really different. And then if you let stress get so far down the line, then you're prone to burnout, which is, a different whole new level.
That is exactly what happened to me a few years back. Literally, it was pressure, and then it was stress, and then exactly burnout, which I would define as complete mental and physical exhaustion. And literally getting up and making a cup of tea seemed overwhelming, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where normally I've been in high pressure environments, 2 gigs a night, no problem at all, and loved it. When it's good, it's good. It's kind of, maybe, would you agree with me on this? There's like eustress, good stress, if you like. Wow, loving this, got to do this, got to do more, I want to do more, it's exciting. And bad stress that drains you. There's a different, it's exciting to ride a roller coaster, but it's not exciting to, I don't know, build one.
Yeah, there is. And as well, I think, like the starting point is, where am I on that line? And what's good, like I was saying earlier, what looks good on me? How much pressure can I take before it tips into stress? Because pressure and stress, for example, right, is down to like one of two things. It's either your perception of a situation, so how you respond, how you view something. So, for example, I might be like, oh, driving on the motorway is really stressful. It's not driving on the motorway that's really stressful. It's my perception of that. You might be like, actually, I can get in my car and drive on the motorway and I never feel stressed or pressured. That's really easy. So it's our own perception of a situation. And then the other is, that's one. And the other is control, or rather lack of control. So when we don't feel in control of a situation, then we feel stressed. So it's about kind of recognizing I can't get away from stress, pressure. It's everywhere. But it's how I respond to that. And, you know, is it my perception of a situation? And if it is, then you've got to work on mindset tools. You've got to like dig deep into the brain a little bit and be like, right, okay, how can I reframe the way I'm looking at things? How can I change things? And then if it's control, if it's lack of control of a situation, then it's right, where can I start taking control? Where do I need to let go? Right, how do I recognize things that are out of my control? You know, other people, their behaviors, how they respond, what they do.
Because
what
we can only really control ourselves, can't we? We can't control.
Can't control.
Well, it's not that we haven't tried over the centuries, one way or another, but ultimately we can only master ourselves and control ourselves, can't we? We can't control the outer world.
We've got to be able to. We've got to be able to mind our own minds. And I think then, you know,
I love that. Mind your own mind and stay in your own lane. I remember hearing that very sage advice before from someone, and I'm like, yeah, that makes complete sense, because it's not one size fits all, is it? And it's good to recognize that. And I love what else you said. You've said so many great things already. You know, don't be fooled by Facebook. I actually knew someone who got really depressed because she thought, by looking at Facebook, everyone else is having an amazing life apart from her. You know what I mean? And it's things like that. Just been, and you're right, people only do show you the headlights, the highlights. But looking at your website, looking at some of these statistics, Angie, each year, 140 million working days are lost to sickness absence in the UK, costing UK employers 29 billion. Wow. The financial cost of British business of mental ill health is estimated at 26 billion per year. And just to contrast the difference between a million and a billion, I don't know if you've heard this one. It's quite a nice one. If you were to 1 second per number, so if you count 1, 2, 3, and count to a million, how long do you think it would take you? How long do you think?
Maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours.
9 days.
I don't know.
If it was a billion,
not my.
No, don't worry. I'm not. This isn't a maths test, I promise. But it's a really good way of showing that, because people think, a million, billion. What's the difference? Well, there is a difference. So if you were to do that to a billion, have a guess. Not 9 days, but how long?
9 years.
27.
Yes, madam. 27.
And to a trillion, 27,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, folks, is the difference between a million and a billion. 9 days or 27 years. That's the difference. So when I say that 26 billion per year is lost, wellbeing programs deliver an estimated return of investment of £4.17 for every £1 spent. So that's a worthwhile investment, and pushing your employees harder is not, it would seem. 1 in 5 people take a day off due to stress, and an employer that actively promotes well-being is 8 times more likely to have employee engagement, and it can see a 25 to 40% reduction in absenteeism. They're not small numbers, are they, Angie? They're not small numbers at all.
No, and they're only growing as well. You know, these stats are updated annually, and I'd imagine they're already a lot higher than that. I think, you know, COVID has impacted people's mental health, their mental health at work, hugely. I mean, it's had a great impact in the sense that it's highlighted mental health a little bit more and made people more aware of it. But it's definitely played a big part in people feeling more stressed, more anxious.
I think the good thing is we're not embarrassed so much to talk about our mental health.
No, we're not.
I mean, I think you've had more chance for people to talk details about their love lives than mental health before. It was the big taboo, wasn't it? It was the, you know, and it was also seen as a weakness. You know, there's this kind of almost macho culture around this, isn't there? That or maybe it's a British thing. I'm going to stiff up a lip. I'm going to carry on, you know, poker face and all that sort of thing. And that's a terrible idea. And I also think we shouldn't judge ourselves for the things that stress us out as well, because we can say, well, that person over there dealt with that well, that person over there dealt with that well. Because I was terribly judgmental on myself for the things that were taking me to this level of stress. I thought, and my inner critic, if you like, that's ridiculous. It's only this, it's only that. No. And that's never helpful. But take me through that timeline again. Pressure leads to stress, eventually leads to burnout.
Yeah. And I think as well, like I said, you can't get away from pressure and stress. It's everywhere. It's unavoidable. But I think if you are proactive in taking care of your overall wellness, so getting like some of the basics in place, making sure.
Talk us through those. Talk us through sort of basics that would apply to all of us. I know you said shed, but maybe put some more meat on the bone there if you could.
So I guess like with sleep, compromising your sleep has a massive impact on your cognitive performances, emotionally, how you feel. Like I always say to people, never make a big decision if you're tired or you've not been sleeping well, because it will skew how you feel. It will skew your performance. So sleep's a big one, and people, it's a tricky one, sleep, because it's different for everybody. And people say to me, how much sleep do I need? I'm only getting 7 hours. I'm only getting 6 hours. The amount of sleep you need really depends on your age. And as we get older, you need less sleep. It's actually when you're younger, you need more sleep. But as you get older,
so we shouldn't judge our teenagers staying in bed all day.
No, you shouldn't. Definitely not. And it's down to the kind of job you do. So if you're doing a physical job, or if you're a bit more sedentary, then that might have an impact on how much sleep you need. What you fuel yourself with, so how much food you consume. So there's lots of different factors at play, and it's about working out what you feel like you need. Like, what does a good night's sleep look like for you? And a bit of advice I always give people as well is to go to bed and wake up at the same time every morning, because that anchors your circadian rhythm, and that's what influences whether or not you have a good or a bad night's sleep. This like basic hygiene as well, alcohol, caffeine, blue light, being on your phone, scrolling, things like that. There's a really interesting guy called TJ Power, and he talks a lot about mastering the neurochemicals in our brain. So things like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. And he's looked like really deeply into scrolling and how scrolling and being on our phone and social media influences our sleep. And it has a massive impact. And it's not what you want to hear, because it's really easy to sit on a night and get sucked down like a social rabbit hole, or be nagging at your kids, get off the phone. But it is sometimes just the basics. It's your environment as well. It's making sure you're going to bed in a great environment. If you've got a laptop in your bed and you've been working in your bedroom and it's a mess and it's cluttered, and it's too cold or too hot and too much light coming into your
sleep expert articles I've read say the bedroom should only be for two things, which is sleep and sex, basically. And they, no TV, and certainly no scrolling. I heard the term doom scrolling as well. That's quite apt, isn't it? Have you heard that one?
Definitely.
Doom scrolling. Yeah, because it's never generally, social media isn't always that social, shall we say? So social media, sleep, good diet. Again, that's going to be different for everyone, I suppose. Go on.
Yeah, diet's really important. And I always think life's about balance, right? So, afford yourself the cake and the glass of wine and the gin and tonic. But I think when you're under pressure, when you need to bring what I call your A game to the table, whether that's in your personal life or at work, then you've got to apply the 80-20 rule. And that is 80% of the time be fueling your body for performance. A bit like a top of the range car. You wouldn't put diesel in a top of the range car if it ran on unleaded, and you wouldn't forget to put oil and water in a top of the range car. And it's the same with your body. You've got to fuel for performance. So if you want to be able to show up and be your best self, and I know that's a little bit of a rubbish saying, be your best self, but if you want to really
no, it's not
be productive.
The thing is, though, the weird thing is that we feel we need to put disclaimers on that and say, you know, it's a bit of a, it's the truth. You know, it makes complete sense. It really is. It's a bit of a weird indictment on our society that we say, oh, sorry about that. Alcohol's the only drug you get judged if you don't take it. How weird is that?
Yeah, I know. And
it's so
funny
woven
enough,
into the fabric, you know.
it is.
It's proven, I'm not condoning this necessarily, but smoking dope is 5 times less dangerous than drinking alcohol. That's been proven scientifically. And yet, if I turned up at the school gate and I went, oh, it's joint o'clock, can you imagine? You know, if I turn up at the school gate and go wine o'clock, they tap me on the back. You know, it's crazy.
Well, again, I think, you know, like you said, it's woven in society. Like I read books, you know, and at 4 o'clock, everyone's drinking wine, and you put TV on and everyone unwinds with a glass of wine. And it is just kind of integral to society. But again, you know, it's about balance. And I think
I'll tell you what springs to mind is sorry, after you.
So little shortcuts and hacks, I think, with like diet and stuff like, so, you know, maybe if you've got a really busy week at work or you've got a lot going on personally, don't drink through the week. You know, maybe just afford yourself a couple of glasses of wine or a gin and tonic or a beer at the weekend. 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So in the lining of your stomach, there's something called our enteric nervous system. And this is known as our second brain, which is why sometimes we have gut feelings and, you know, that kind of thing. So, and all the serotonin that's produced in your enteric nervous system is then carried up to your CNS. And if we're not producing enough serotonin, then we get brain fog. We're not performing as best cognitively as we should. So your diet's super important. And it's just about, you know, stripping back some of the processed
stuff. I suppose if you're drinking at night, before you go on, this just flags something for me. 2 things. First of all, everything in moderation, including moderation itself, is a lovely phrase that I heard. In other words, you can still have fun in life. You know what I mean? It's all right to have retreats and have fun, and we should be. But it's not so much what we're doing, it's why we're doing it. Drinking after a successful day, to have a couple of G&Ts to wind down with your mate or something like that, no problem at all. If you're drinking to block out painful feelings or to avoid dealing with something or whatever, or to numb pain, that's an entirely different reason, isn't it? And that's how people get trapped, isn't it? It's not so much what you're doing, it's more the why, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And also, I think it starts that way, you know, I'm feeling really stressed about something and I can't manage that right now, and I'm just going to go home and have a couple of drinks and forget about it. That's not going to make the problem go away. And then the more you do that, then the more it becomes a habit. And then you just kind of find yourself in a bit of a downward spiral. So
I've seen people do
that,
and it just makes it worse. But this was alcohol, this particular example, but he wasn't doing it to celebrate successes in his life and socially. He was doing it for the other reason. And you're absolutely right. It did. Well, he died. So I'd say that's quite a big downward spiral, which was horrible. But yeah, so it's catch it in the early subtle stages, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's about putting preventative strategies in place. So being proactive with your overall, you know, sleep, diet, the basics, looking after yourself. And listen, you know, no amount of fruit, veg, and water is going to make you feel better if you find out your husband's cheating on you, or you're going to get the sack from your job, you're going to be laid off. You know, that's not going to make that go away. It's not going to make it better. But what it does is it gives you a good baseline, so that when these things come and you're hit sideways, or, you know, you get a curveball in life, you're better equipped to deal with them.
Yeah. Because
you're taking care of yourself and you feel more emotionally, mentally fitter, stronger than if, you know, you've not been sleeping and you've been drinking and you've been eating loads of processed food and loads of caffeine. Then what happens is you're hit sideways when life's curveballs come your way, and they're harder to deal with. So I'm not saying that these are going to fix problems. They're not. I think it's about getting the basics right to put you in a better place to manage.
But they
things.
do make the problems an awful lot easier to deal with, don't they?
They exasperate them massively. Yeah. Yeah.
And so many people do that, albeit innocently. It's a fairly innocent thing. People just want to feel better. I understand that. It's not like, I'm not judging. Julie says, Julie Verman, hello Julie. Scrolling is the worst drug. Honestly, that overloads our dopamine, doesn't it? The scrolling, you know.
Yeah, and then we get like quick hits and spikes of dopamine, and our dopamine doesn't level out. So, yes, scrolling is not good for our mental health. And I'm constantly nagging my teenage daughter. We, try and have boxed off moments, because you can't look. It's like when I was a kid, right? Everyone used to say, "Don't watch TV; it'll make your eyes square." Don't watch TV, it's not good for you. There was a big thing, TV was going to make us all into really poor, lazy adults. It didn't have that effect, obviously. But I guess phones are different. Phones, we can easily get sucked into phones. I think we can waste so much time on phones. I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at my as part of the workshop, we all looked at our average daily use on the phone, and I was really embarrassed when I saw how long I'd spent on the phone. I was mortified. I was like, that's so many hours in the day when I could have been working towards something else. And look, I'm the coach. I'm the wellness coach. Even I make mistakes. I get things wrong. I'm not perfect. But what it did was it gave me a little mental check, and I was like, right, okay, I'm determined to get that down. And I've been introducing phone fasts into our house.
Yeah.
My husband is never on his phone, so it doesn't really apply to him. It's more to me and my daughter, if I'm honest. But we don't pick up the phone for the first 30, 45 minutes of the day. So we get up, breakfast, make our bed, do some of the basic stuff, then pick up the phone. So I say to my daughter, you can't pick up your phone and check your phone until you've got everything done this morning. And I've got to be obviously setting an example, so I don't do it. And then on an evening, we carve out some time where we're like, right, okay, we're ring fencing that time. There's no phones. So if we go out for dinner, no phones at the table. If we're watching a movie, put your phone away, because what will happen, we'll be sat watching the movie, and my daughter will say to me, oh, wasn't he in so-and-so? And then I'll Google it, and then I'll look, and then I'll go down a big rabbit hole, and the phone's present, and then I'm checking something else. So we try and just start small. So, phone fast for the first 30, 40 minutes of the day.
How's that gone over with your teenage daughter?
Well, I think she thinks I'm a nag, but we're quite strict with the phone in our house, with my daughter, and she doesn't like it, but I always say to her, hate me now, thank me later.
I know what you mean, but I know what you mean, because if I'd have been your teenager, I'd have probably had a Kevin the teenager moment. That is so unfair. But I do know what you mean. It is easy to get sucked down those rabbit holes, and now it's been proven that it's not, a phone isn't a terrible thing, but being able to. Sorry.
It's not a terrible thing, our phone, but we live, Neil, in an always on culture. We are switched on from the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed. Like, we have on average 70,000 thoughts a day. That's loads. I can't even remember the last 5 thoughts I had, or the last 10. And this is this coupled with the fact that we're bombarded with information every minute of the day from loads of different sources. It's really hard to recognize what we need to pay attention to, what we need to let go of. And then that means that we're always switched on. And then it's even harder to dial down what I call a busy mind and switch off. So, if you're constantly on, then it's harder to get to sleep on a night. It's harder to relax. It's harder to unwind. It's harder to decompress and de-stress. So we've got to be quite strict sometimes with technology. And technology is great, right? It allows us to work anywhere in the world we can send emails, we can run our businesses off our smartphones. But there are cons as well as pros to the phone. And I think protecting your time, protecting your energy especially, because, your energy is your currency. It's like your monthly salary. Once it's gone, it's gone. You can't get it back. And the same applies to your energy. Once you've spent it, it's gone. And if you spend it on things that are not going to give you a return on investment, then it's gone. So I think,
what do you think are good energy boosters? Because we've talked about the energy drainers. Let's flip it over. What are the good energy boosters, do you think, Angie?
People.
For you personally, huh?
People. So I think there are people that are like radiators. Yeah, definitely. And they're warm, and they're like human versions of sunshine. So I think there's definitely people can boost your energy. Physical exercise might sound a bit of a contradiction, but exercising generates more energy. Yes. The more you move, the better you feel. Food, so what you fuel yourself with. I think rest, while that might seem counterproductive, and I don't think we're very good at recognizing how rest can boost our energy, but it does, mentally and physically. So, taking what I call like micro breaks throughout your day can make you feel more energized. So that could just look like,
in a perfect world, what would our rest, fun, work balance be in a perfect world, do you think?
You see, I think that's really tricky, because I don't actually believe in work-life balance. I don't think it's a thing. I think what we do is we try and balance our lives like a set of scales. And I think that makes us more stressed, because I don't think you can get a 50-50 balance at any point in your life, right? Because there's times in my life when I've had things happening personally where I've had to dial down the work side of things and throw myself into my personal life, because it's required more of my energy, more of my time, and vice versa. There's been times when, I've been going for promotion, or I've got a big project on, or I'm working on something exciting, and I've had to dial down my personal life and up the ante on my work, on my professional life. So I think it's about striving for a blend rather than a balance, and recognizing that that's going to look different at any one time, and you might have to adjust it. But it's about working out just how much of each that you need at any one point in your life. So if you're, if you're going for a promotion at work, or you're working on a huge piece of business, you're going to have to work late a few nights, and you might have to say to your friends, I can't make that dinner date, or I can't make that social occasion because I'm working on something really big. But what you're working on might really energize you and excite you. So that's okay. I don't mind working on things.
Interestingly, that doesn't feel like work, does it? If you're in flow, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So like if I'm really into something, there's been times where I've been in flow state, I don't know, DJing or something like that. Yeah. And you look up and there's 4 hours gone. It's like, where the hell did that go? Yeah. Do I feel tired? No, I feel fantastic. No. But it's all relative, isn't it? I think Einstein said, spend 1 minute in a post office queue, it feels like hours. Spend a whole day with a beautiful woman, it feels like minutes. I think Einstein said that. So I'm not being sexist. Albert said it, not me. But that's kind of thing, isn't it?
100%. And it's about recognizing that it's going to look different at any point, depending on what you're focusing on. And I do think that when you're doing things that, like you said, that you love, you're in flow state. Like for me, people say to me when I go into businesses, what are your boundaries, and what do boundaries look like for you? Well, don't worry about my boundaries, worry about yours, because for me, if I'm on holiday, I'll check my emails. I'll take my laptop away with me, but that's because it's my own business. And normally the kind of emails or, the messages I get are really low level stuff. So they don't eat into my holiday. And I love what I do. So I really like, keeping an eye on things. But for some people, you know, responding to emails on holiday is not acceptable. And I get that as well. And I don't judge people who check emails, and I don't judge people who
I
don't.
actually get a bit the other way. I would take my laptop everywhere, including on holiday, but I would spend all the time on the laptop, so I wasn't really on holiday. So again, I needed to bring that back into the middle. Right, going to ask for personal advice now. I do lots of different things. Okay, so do you want to play a game? Angie's most difficult case ever, and remind me. Just to remind you, you are talking to Nikki Patrick, my radio wife, don't you?
Yeah.
I call her. Yeah. Wonderful presenter and friend, and
amazing.
She put us two together, actually. That's why you're here. Thanks to Nikki. So thanks, Nikki, for that. But you're talking to the man that even Trini and Susanna turned down because they couldn't sort him out sartorially when Nikki tried to set that up. So I'm not an easy case. So I do podcasting. Okay, I help people get their podcasts online. I'm a very, very good editor, radio stuff. I do stand-up comedy, which I'm doing tonight in Margate. All right.
Right.
I have 5 early radio shows a week, 7 till 10, Monday to Friday, and the occasional one at weekends, including this weekend. I do DJ gigs.
Okay.
I like Foster's Lager a little bit too much. And I vape, as you can see. I need to quit that. And that'll probably do for now. And I do the midday show twice a week.
Okay.
Like now. And I don't sleep very well.
Okay. And what do you think like your biggest challenges then? Is is that okay with you, or do you think you're doing too much, or are you finding you're tired, or is your energy low, or?
I find my energy's low. I find I'm tired. I find I'm trying to do too much at once, and therefore not doing it particularly well. When I know I can bring a much better game to it if I have more time to do it. But it's like overstimulation. I enjoy all the things that I do. It's a question of making it all work, serve the people I want to serve, be profitable to me, and have some energy left at the end of it. There we go.
Okay. So, I mean, you've got a lot on, haven't you? Your time's precious, but your energy is, like I said earlier, is your currency. So you can have all the time in the world, but if you haven't got the energy to fulfill things in that time, then it's no use whatsoever. So
that's
I'd be looking at
like, all the time in the world and no energy to do anything. Yeah. So you're right.
Yeah.
Time wasn't the factor then, but yes, you're absolutely right, Angie. Yeah.
So I'd be looking at energy over time, and I use a prioritizing tool as well. So when I've got loads of things on, I find what really helps me from feeling overwhelmed is taking control, because again, that's a form of stress when everything feels out of control, and planning. So I plan my time quite meticulously and plan ahead as much as I can. So the week before, you've got, because are you doing stand-up gigs every week, or is that just every couple of weeks, or as and when they come in?
Every week. Some of them are in London, but some of them are down in Kent. Kent's quite a big scene for the stand-up. So I've got 3 this week, for example, 2 in London and 1 in Kent. So 3 stand-up gigs, 5, 6, 7 radio shows, and 2 podcasts to edit this week. So
I would start time blocking what you're doing. So breaking all your jobs down into chunks. So make a list of what I think is super useful is making a list of everything I've got to do. So whether it's writing a report, making a phone call, sending an email, picking up dry cleaning, going to Tesco's to grab a bit of milk, write everything down. Plan your week on a Friday. So your week ahead, plan on a Friday. So you know what's coming. That'll help you relax a little bit on a weekend. Because I think when we have got, I guess, that Sunday fear, when we're like, oh gosh, what's coming in on us like next week, it's mostly because we don't really know what's coming in. So planning the week before will really help, making a list and then planning out each day. So what does each day look like? what I always do as well is when I write down everything that I've got to do, I prioritize it using a tool called 135. So I write everything down and then I say to myself, okay, right, what is the one big chunky task that I've got to do today? What's 3 medium-sized tasks on that list? What's 5 small? So for you, one big chunky task could be like writing your gig, because that's going to take a lot of your mental energy, right? You've got to be switched on. You've got to have loads of gags. You've got to be a funny person. So writing, I'd imagine, a stand-up set is quite high energy.
Well, I've already got an existing set and I add to it, but you could add in writing more stuff and then of course, when you write the stuff, you've got to take it out and try it on the open mic circuit to see if it wasn't just funny in my head. But I get your point. I'm not negating your point at all. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So it's taking like one big chunky task, 3 medium-sized tasks, 5 small tasks. And then you're like, right, okay, I'm going to start with whatever reflects when I'm most effective. So say, for example, you love mornings, you're really effective in the morning, you carve up your day and you're like, right, so you're an afternoon person. So
no,
what
evening.
You would do
I'm a night owl. I'm an owl rather than a lark. Okay.
So then you would start your mornings with your small tasks, your 5 small tasks, and you'd do them. And then you'd work your way up to your 3 medium-sized tasks, and you'd leave your chunky task that requires loads of energy, mental energy, until the end of the day, the night. And breaking down big tasks as well really helps, because every time we achieve something on our to-do list, every time we hit a goal, whether it's a little goal or a big goal, our brain rewards us with a big squish of dopamine, and dopamine energizes us. It motivates us. It's what keeps us going. And this is the hack, right? Our brain can't tell the difference between a big task and a small task. So by breaking everything down and doing it into small digestible chunks, you are getting that constant squish of dopamine, which is motivating you, which is energizing you, which is going to help you perform.
And that's healthy dopamine as opposed to dopamine overload when you scrolling.
Phone. Yeah. So working when you're most effective will really help. Breaking down your tasks as well. Creating, I guess, creating boundaries for yourself. So if your writing time or your planning time is sacred, you're going to have to say to other people, no, I can't do that, or I can't commit to that. So setting good boundaries will help. And then again, trying that 80-20 rule. So when you're, dashing in and out of London to do gigs, and you're doing a podcast, and you've got to be up early for the morning show, maybe be a bit like, right, okay, I'm going to fuel myself this week with some good stuff, some good nutrition. I'm probably going to make sure I'm drinking loads of water and less Fosters. I'll save the Fosters. And I'll save the Fosters for on a weekend, because, like I said, life is about balance. And just doing what works for you, I think, and thinking about, like, I always think, like, when am I at my best? When am I performing at my best? Well, it's when I'm getting good night's sleep, when I'm energized. And this is what I do that hinders that. So I'm going to do less of that and more of the other. Giving yourself micro mind breaks as well. So, if you've got all this stuff going on. So if you've got loads of things going on, you're going to start to feel overwhelmed. You're going to start to feel stressed. So building in 10-minute mind breaks during your day. So it could be, okay, so in between shows, or, in between the show and the debrief, or prepping for the show and going live on air, I'm going to take a 10-minute break. And for me, that could be sitting in the garden with a cup of tea and just relaxing, and leaving my phone in the kitchen because it's only going to distract me. Or it could be going for a quick block walk at lunchtime, just taking 10 minutes away from your screen, away from things that stimulate you, getting better as well at monotasking. So what we tend to do when we're busy,
this whole thing about women being good I know men aren't, but this whole thing about women being multitaskers, is that scientifically valid, or do you think that's nonsense?
I think it's just a myth. And people wear busy like a badge of honor. People think it's great to multitask. It isn't. Multitasking is really not good for us. When we are jumping from one task to the other or trying to concentrate on too many things at once, we burn oxygenated glucose in the brain, and that's what we need to stay on task. Oxygenated glucose is the source of energy that we need to stay on task, but we're burning through it at a rapid rate. And also jumping from one thing to another can make us feel anxious. It can increase, our stress levels. So monotasking is going to help. And monotasking is just focusing on one thing at a time. And if you're somebody who multitasks and feels quite overwhelmed and is always doing things, then you're going to find monotasking quite hard to start with. So it's just about keeping it simple, a really simple way of.
No, I love it. You've given us some great, it's one of those shows that's worth watching back and making notes. You've given us some great things, Angie. Thank you. Do you have a morning routine that you do?
I do, yeah. I tend to, I'm a bit of a early bird. I'm not really somebody who can lie in even on a weekend. So I'm normally awake somewhere between 6 and 6:30.
Oh, goodness, you are an early bird.
My other half always brings a cup of tea in bed.
He's a good man. I'll have a cup of tea. Well trained.
He's a good keeper. And we'll just have a cup of tea and a chat. And then I'll get up and I'll start my day with movement. So get dressed and I try and get to the gym for about 7. And start my day with movement. I'm a big fan of something called domino mornings. And I've been talking a lot about that on my social at the moment.
That's nothing to do with eating last night's pizza, I take it. No, probably not.
Nothing to do with pizzas, no. Domino mornings is like, if you think about a domino rally, right? When you hit the domino, it has a knock-on effect and it knocks everything down. And domino mornings is when you just try one thing or even 2 small things that start your day the right way. And that could be a healthy breakfast. It could be not picking up your phone. It could be some form of movement. Even just stretching, gentle stretching or walking, getting a bit of fresh air, getting outside and getting some vitamin D. And that has an impact on the rest of your day. So if you think about stressful mornings you've had, right? Say if you've woke up and your other half has had the last of the milk and you can't have a coffee and you've checked your email first thing and you've seen a snotty email off somebody, all of that has an impact on how you start your day. And then it has a knock-on effect and you can take... It's emotional contagion, right? So you then catch on to that and you take it into the rest of your day and you spread it onto other people or you spread it into everything you do. But a domino morning is just doing, like I said, 2 positive things to start your day, and then it will have a knock-on effect on the rest of your day. So if I move first thing in the morning or have a healthy breakfast, then I'm like, I feel good. I've set my day up well. I'm ready to go. But just because I do that, it doesn't mean to say that's right for everybody else. It's just about finding, and this is the important thing as well, Neil. I think when it comes to well-being, it's about tweaks, really small incremental changes that have a knock-on effect. So it's not about like going out and, being up at 6 and meditating and then going for a 5-mile run and then eating a, protein shake. It's not about that. It's just about little things. It's about finding moments that will have an impact on the rest of your day. And I think it is. It's about small and simple.
And that sounds so much more doable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're using the momentum of the dominoes. And I think people that do the 5-mile run, the meditate, the this, the that, they're pushing all of the dominoes over themselves, but they want to be using the momentum. Is that a good way of looking at it, do you think?
Definitely. And I think, great for those people who can get up and do the meditation and the 5-mile runs. I'm not judging them in any way or saying that's not a great thing.
No, sure.
But the thing is, if you want to create a sticky habit, if you want to create something that's going to stick, it's got to be attainable. It's got to be something that you can fit in with your lifestyle. And let's face it, right? Everybody right now leads super busy lives. Nobody's got, I don't know very many people that say to me, I'm not juggling work, kids, caring for parents, side hustles and all the rest of it. We've all got things going on, stuff. So it's about making a plan, finding what works for you, striving for progress over perfection as well. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about making that little bit of progress. And if that's just getting up and having, 15 minutes on a morning where you don't pick up your phone, you don't watch the news, you just have a nice cup of tea and you just be for 15 minutes before you start your day, so you feel, focused. Or maybe you write your to-do list and you feel, or you write a gratitude list, or there's so much you can do. You just get that 10-15 minutes before the kids get up, before the house turns into chaos, or before you go into work and you're hit with the first curveball of the day, or the meeting with your boss, or the phone call with your client.
So it's not selfish. It's not selfish to take time for yourself. It is in fact imperative, is what you're saying.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Like we said,
you've got to put your, definitely. If you go onto an aeroplane and they do the safety check, the first thing they say to you is put your own oxygen mask on first. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to put your own oxygen mask on first to be able to show up for your kids, to be a good partner, to be a good parent, to be a good sister, friend, all those things. Because we wear so many hats in life.
Yeah. And so many people, I think the recovering people pleasers amongst us, they put other people first. I did some great interviews with a lady called Helen Snape, who is a recovering people pleaser, her words. And she was doing that. And it just, again, leads to exhaustion. But putting yourself first leads to more energy. And it's not selfish, it's self-care. And it's absolutely imperative. If we don't care for ourselves, then someone else will have to. And then arguably that's more selfish than caring for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's just about, thinking, what can I do? What's the one small thing that I'm going to do today for me that's going to allow me to show up and do my job better, or, be a better parent, or a better carer. So yeah, it's just small, simple, and then stretch. So once you've mastered one thing, stretch, try something else.
Yeah. And then ultimately, like you said earlier in the interview, it will then become automatic. And then before you know it, then we've got the domino effect, the long-term domino effect, which is what we're looking for here. Brilliant. Oh, I can see why Nikki raves about you. Thank you, Angie McGrandles. You've been absolutely wonderful guest. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Neil. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
And if people want to find you, it's themindtribe.co.uk.
Yeah, and I'm also on Instagram, so it's just at the Mind Tribe, and I regularly post tips, tools, really simple and easy to deploy strategies just to boost your overall wellness and mental health.
Okay, brilliant. Love talking about mental health. Big subject at the moment, importantly so, necessarily so. Angie McGrandles, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on. It's very much appreciated. And I hope our paths cross again at some point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What a great guest. Themindtribe.co.uk if you'd like to get in touch with Angie. Just enough time for me to say that Russ and the gang will be back on Friday with Jonathan Bez and Chantal Ricard's Screen Queen. All coming up on Friday for you. So make sure you tune in for that. And that is just about it from me. Oh, that's a strange comment. Just the comments we had through the show. Scrolling is the worst drug. Honestly, I think it overstimulates, Julie, the dopamine system. I think that's the sciencey bit behind it. But you can tell by how you feel, basically. And Graham says that's the best longies look for ages. That's when that happened earlier in the show. Thank you, Graham. Always good to have our resident comedian on the show. So you take care, everyone. Lovely talking to you. All the very best. You take the best of care. And Russ and the gang will be back on Friday. Good afternoon for now.